Hello, welcome back to another episode of Off the Donut. Today we are joined by Andrew from Moonflower. Say hi.
Hey, what's up?
Oh yeah. So Moonflower is they're an alternative post-hardcore band based out of Newark, Delaware, that formed in 2016, crafting eerily theatrical breakdowns of perfectly backed frontman Andrew Weidert's. Am I pronouncing that by the way? Right. By the way, is it
Yeah,
Weidert? Okay.
yeah, you
Um,
can say whatever. I've heard it all.
Okay, word. It was grainy, equally energetic vocals. Moonflower EP Feel It 2 is being re-released on 200 black and 100 teal 7-inch vinyl, which I have right here. We got the teal, which is looking nice and fresh, and then the black as well, which are looking equally nice and fresh. Um, through Impetus and Lonely Bird Records on July 3rd, 2021, and is available for pre-order now. In the description, records are available through our website, Vans Bandcamp, and Big Cartel, and Impetus's website, which are all going to be linked below. So how are you doing today, my guy?
I'm doing excellent. I'm a little bit sleepy, but other than that, I'm awake. I'm rocking. I'm ready to handle the day. How are you doing?
Um, Good. I actually I got probably the most sleep I've gotten this week, so
Yeah,
that's good. Yeah,
it's a
I have
blessing.
to. I usually close and also open at both my jobs, so I'm running off of like 4 hours of sleep for
Oh,
like
no, no,
4 days
no.
a week. Yeah, it's not fun.
Yeah, the
Um,
back-to-back shifts.
oh, it's what we live for. So that actually kind of ties into the bev check. I just got some water with me today. I don't have any snacks. I had a cheesesteak earlier though, so that was cool. Got
Did
the
you say a
Red
cheese
Bull,
steak or a cheese stick?
the cheesesteak. It was like
Okay,
half a
that's way
one,
better. I was like, you had one thing of string cheese and that's it.
dude. And hey, no, but don't diss on the string cheese though. That shit goes hard.
That's a
Um,
fact.
Yeah, so we can go ahead and get started if you want. So my first question, usually something I just like to ask kind of every band or artist that I interview is just where your name came from. So where did Moonflower actually come from?
Um, we were kind of like all over the place with having a name. We were kind of just BSing and just writing songs without the intention of doing much with it. And then we booked a
Mhm.
single show. And the night before, we were like, oh, we're going to have to call ourselves something. Like there's going to have to be some sort of moniker here. And so we bounced a whole bunch of ideas and no really latched onto any of them. And it was like super late again, sleepless night, and just like mindlessly scrolling Facebook. And you ever go down these like wormholes where like you see
Mhm.
someone and you click on their profile and then there's like a mutual friend and you click on this and then you're just ending up, and I have no clue whose profile I'm on. It's
Yeah.
this elderly woman and she's posting about all these plants that she has. And she's talking about like she woke up this morning and her moonflowers had just blossomed.
Oh.
And I'm like, I've only heard of sunflowers. This has
Mhm.
got to be a typo. So I just
Yeah.
kind of Googled them, and I'm still not as familiar as I used to be, but to my understanding, they only will bloom at night. Like if the sun is out, it's a no-go for them.
Word.
And I was just like, that'd be cool. I don't think I've heard anybody with that name yet, so we could take
Mhm.
that one. And that was pretty much it.
Word. No, that's sick. So you guys kind of came up with that sort of like last minute. Do you think is there any reason why you think that specifically stuck, or as opposed to like you guys trying to come up with another name later?
Um,
Or you're just like, yeah, this works.
that's pretty much where it was at. Yeah, we were just like, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if we're doing it now, the thing too was we had played that like initial show and then put our first record out in a
Mm-hmm.
very short period of time. This was like 3 months from the time we first jammed on like our first demo to the time we had released a record, and had no clue what we were doing. So we were like, well, we can't just change the name now and then
Mm-hmm.
just put this record out again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Word. Cool. So my next one, my next question was, were there any specific bands, artists, whether that be visual or musical, any lyrics or other sounds that kind of inspired how Feel It 2 is written, or that you kind of feel are apparent like in that final product?
Um, it's a little hard for me to think back to like the writing process when we were really grinding that out. We're a little bit of a different lineup now.
Mm-hmm.
Our influences were all kind of similar. I feel like we had all been friends and hung out all the time and listened to all the same music forever anyways. I mean, for me personally, it feels like the same like 5 laundry list bands all the time. Like huge on Title Fight, huge on Super Heaven. Really big into like the earlier portion of the Smashing Pumpkins discography. Hum is really good. Just a lot of that kind of like post grunge, modern alternative, whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? I've just been into that for ever, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's what we always get from other people. We love to ask like, what did you hear? You know what I mean? And we've had some weird ones. We had a guy who told us it was like a cross between Hum and Linkin Park. And then we had a show in
I can kind of see that actually.
And we were told it was like if Super Heaven was trying to be knocked loose, is what we were told.
I think when I asked you for the write-up for the website, I think that was something
that
you wrote down.
Yeah, we run with that one for sure.
No, that's sick. I love that. That's great. Yeah, no, looking at like inspirations is always kind of funny. Especially if you're asking other people what they see in that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what's always cool to us too, because we listen to so much, but you always just kind of jump to your favorites. But it's not that that's all we're listening to all the time. You know what I mean? Like lately, I've been on like a healthy mix of like 90s East Coast hip hop and like the Grateful Dead, which is just polar opposites of anything I'm doing musically. So
yeah, but at the same time, I think it's I don't want to say healthy, but I think it's good to listen to stuff that like isn't
big time
in your genre, because it's just nice to listen to, and also it kind of helps in terms of like writing music itself. It kind of helps break that up. So
yeah, big time.
Word. So Feel It Too is sort of a question asked during the opener track, which is Philip Morris USA, which I also ended up looking up. That's a cigarette company, right? I didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's an unfortunate habit that I had developed, like during the recording process of that. It was a little bit of a messy period in my life, and by the time the record was done, I was like, I'm on these things crazy. Like, we don't have a title for this song. Like,
fuck it, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, is there any reason you decided to end up using "Feel It Too" as the EP title? What point during like the EP do you think you actually ended up figuring that out?
Definitely everything had been like written and recorded, and we were kind of in the process of post, and just kind of running our ideas of what we wanted to do in terms of touring on it and releasing it, and like a promotional schedule, if that makes, if that's the proper term.
Yeah.
It was just like a lyric first. Honestly, I felt really weird having, like, when you're listening to the song from that verse to that short pre-chorus before the drop into the hook, it just felt weird having that just transition be silent. It felt like dead air in a way. And I almost just kind of pulled it out of my ass and was like, do you feel it? Like, I feel it. Do you feel it?
Yeah.
And that's kind of a thing I think that tied into us in a weird way with our live performance too. Just because we have so many shows, depending on where you are, you know what I mean? We're either the weird, soft, like wannabe hardcore band that's actually an emo band on a hardcore show, or we're the like overly abrasive hardcore band on the emo show. Like, both crowds don't really know how to read it sometimes. And a lot of the time you just get like the horseshoe crowd where everyone's like, the whole time. And so we always have tried to encourage like some movement, some sort of dancing, something like that, so that we just don't look like idiots doing it by ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think I talked with the dudes on the Soundtown podcast about this, how if you get one person, or you can make one person feel comfortable enough to do it, you know what I mean? Immediately the whole room, the energy changes, because now everyone's like, well, if this person isn't afraid to look like a fool, then like, what's holding me back from having any fun? You know what I mean? Who cares?
Yeah.
And that's a weird, it didn't cross my mind then, but the more I listen to the record and we perform it, is like, do you? Art thou feeling it now, Mr. Krabs? You know what I mean?
All right.
In terms of when we kind of decided, we have always been not the greatest at like coming up with album titles. We kind of just go and go and go and get these songs done and get these songs done. And then we're like, shit. Like same thing with the band. Like we got to have a title for this.
Yeah.
And we just pulled it. That's pretty much it. We were like skimming through the lyrics and we were like, this one could be cool. Initially, we were going to do You Feel It Too? And Chase was like, that's too much. Don't do that.
Yeah.
And so we just kind of kept the little Feel It Too. And I like the artwork. I feel like it all has this weird, half nostalgic vibe thing going on, like, which is cool.
The blue, especially with that blue of the cover, and then that like the orange in the sunset in the background, and then it's just that weird ass fucking black and white, like looks like a 1930s illustration.
Yeah, weird collage. Our old bass player, when he moved from Delaware, got really into like collage making, and I was like, yo, these are sick, like we got to have something like this for the record. And he was like, I've got this perfect like duo set for like a front and a back, like check it out. And we were like, boom, that's the one, like that's it, and just ran with it.
Yeah, my band's working on our album is in the process of being finished up at the moment, and we're having this girl I went to middle school with, she does a bunch of like gothic collage artwork, and so we've been working with her, and it's been super cool seeing that come together. Word. No, it again, like I said, that cover definitely does have that nostalgic feel, so I think that definitely plays into the title really well. So there was about a 2-year gap between Feel It 2 and Ancient Burial Ground, and about a 3-year gap between Feel It 2 and It's Over, It's Under. During that time, because there was also lineup changes in between various things, even after Feel It 2 came out as well. How do you kind of feel the writing process changed, both for you specifically and the band as a whole, through those releases and then also through those lineup changes?
The biggest difference in writing, I think, is the lineup changes by a long shot. It's a weird history, like a timeline, but the group had started with me and a friend of mine at the time, Luce, who played guitar, and I was drumming and doing the vocals. And like I'd said, we were just kind of winging it. We had played this show, and a kid from Kent County that we knew, Jordan Phipps, had shown up. And he was like, yo, this is real sick. Like, if you guys need someone on low end, like, I'd love to play bass for you guys. And that was in like August 2016, I want to say. And from there, the writing process was like all we did all the time. It was ridiculous. I was in my early 20s. I had just freshly turned 21. We were admittedly probably abusing alcohol more than we should have been. And so like, that was all we did. We all worked these bunk retail jobs, and all we really had was this band, you know what I mean? And so if everyone has a day off, we'd go over there at 11 a.m., 12 o'clock, like this time, you know what I mean? And we would be there until 4 or 5 a.m. And it was until 3, 4, 5 a.m. no matter what. So if everyone worked and we got there at 11, like, we're still cranking out these 5 hours. If we're doing 16 hours, like, we're doing 16 hours. And that was like a minimum 5 days a week. We would just write and jam and practice. Like, we would, like, after we had finished working on It's Over, It's Under, we would just practice it for 3 hours front to back. We were like, okay, this is going to be the order. Like, let's just play it. And that was it. And we would just do it and do it and do it and do it and stop and have a little bit of food and then get back into it, keep going. And that followed in to the second record as well. Because after we had put out It's Over, It's Under, we were still on that same type of time where we were just grinding. Like, this is all we do all the time. Like, if we're not playing a show, we can still hang out and we can still get something done. And so It's Over, It's Under was initially intended to be like 8 tracks, and we had pulled one, and then within 3 more, like 2 to 3 more months, we had written 8 more tracks, and we were like, well, we got to do these ones now, you know what I mean? So that was it. And then we did a split with Carrier where we kind of just pulled 2 songs that we had been working on, but we weren't really aiming to do a full EP or like a solo release, just to keep something fresh. And then um, I think we got a little bit more caught up in traveling and performing and didn't give ourselves enough time to balance our personal life and time to like write and make music.
Mm-hmm.
So we really took like a long gap where with Feel It Too, we were just playing shows all the time. And then we would have like one day off where we could hang, and then we'd throw together a demo and then wouldn't listen to it again for, like 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and then come back to it. And then finally we were like, let's just take a break from playing shows and get a record out. And we just kind of went through this pool of unfinished demos that we had, and then picked like the ones we thought could be pretty strong and really hammered it down and worked on those. And since then, the lineup has had like a really big shift with Luce not being in the band, and Jordan having, moved away as well. Our good friend Chase, who we've known this whole time, was playing drums for us for a little bit when we had some issues finding a drummer, but he is a guitar player primarily. So he kind of stepped up there, and we filled the other roles fairly easily. And now with COVID, our writing process has obviously been slowed down some. But we want to get everybody just in the same room and take our time with it, instead of just seeing how many songs we can crank out and then turning around and like purling those songs. You know what I mean? Let's just take our time on one song until it's exactly how we want it. You know what I mean? And then jump on to the next
from there.
thing. Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah. So with some, I guess, some further juxtaposition as well. It's Over, It's Under, being your guys' sort of first release. I was lyrically focused a lot more on relationships and love, whereas Feel It Too feels, going back to that kind of nostalgia aspect that we were talking about earlier, it feels a lot more reflective just on life and other experiences as a whole. Some of that might just be you growing older, but can you talk a little bit about that change in writing style? If there's anything that particularly inspired it, or anything else that you might feel is kind of relevant to that?
I think the big thing is definitely just growing up, like you had said. That's the thing in the forefront of my mind, at least, that seems most prevalent of a reason to me. Another thing is like a somewhat of a taste change. When the band had started out, I had gone through like a very, very difficult breakup, and was just kind of like not knowing how to properly cope with that, and was just kind of stretching for any little thing I could. And then when you hear other breakup records while you're going through that, you know what I mean? You're just like, this is it.
Yeah.
And so like, that's what we did. And looking back on it, it's like, I don't want to say I'm ashamed of it. I think the songs have merit to them, but it doesn't feel like me anymore when I listen to it, if that makes sense. It's I don't know. I'm just at this point where it felt a little bit rude. I'm like, how am I supposed to just sit here and put something on a recording about everything that went wrong, and then go out and just spread that information, that personal information, out to all these people, just because I was scorned and immature at the time, when realistically, like, a relationship works both ways. I definitely had several of my own fuck ups in that regard. And it's tough too, because there's like certain songs on there that everyone is like, this is the Moonflower track. And they're like, play this one. And I'm like, yo, I'm like, I feel I don't want to say I feel bad, because like I said, there's merit to it. I think they're well-written songs. I'm really happy that was our first release. Like, I think that's a banger of a first release. But from writing it at 2021 to now looking at it 25, 26, I'm like, there's infinitely more purposeful and like relatable things I could be writing up than like, this girl made me sad. You know? And that's pretty much where a lot of it came from, was like, okay, why am I writing about what happened as a result of both of our mistakes and highlighting your mistakes, when it gave me the opportunity to really reflect on like myself and my own things that I know I need to work on, but are just kind of pushing to the side. And that's where a lot of Feel It Too came from, was like, why are you writing about everybody else? You know what I mean? Like, handle your own shit.
and I think that also as well can just be more meaningful both to you as someone writing it and also as someone listening to it, because I think you
Absolutely.
can tell that like not that, I don't want to say that, not that like you're putting more effort into it, but I feel like in a way it can almost kind of come more naturally because it is
It's
um
more personal. Yeah,
mm,
absolutely.
cool. So there was a lot of there was some experimentation with feedback and some other harsh ambience on most of the songs on the EP. Was there a particular reason why you decided to include so much of it? And were there, like, during that recording process, were there any particular methods that you kind of found to get some good chunky feedback going?
um, we've always, I don't want to say we've been noise heads because every like all the Delaware noise scene is going to be like, we ain't never seen you at one of these shows. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like feedback and a lot of like hardcore and punk music background and heavier music. There's an experimentation to it that we were always like, this shit is abrasive in a way that you're like, what the fuck is going on? Or even with like shoegaze, you know, you'll have somebody just be fucking with some shit relentlessly to the point that you're not listening to this track, you're listening to this one specific thing that's happening, trying to just rack your brain with what that sound is, what you can compare that sound to, how it could be made, stuff like that. And so we did it a lot more playing live for a while before recording. Like I remember, especially after like the second release, and then when the Carrier split came out and we were playing Tired a lot, and when people really started enjoying that song, that end breakdown, that just kind of thing, we were like, we need to put something in between this instead of just making it like a like open 1 2 3 1 2 3 kind of deal. Make it a little more entertaining. And so we started like fiddling with feedback and stuff like that. And I don't particularly remember how I came across it, but Spencer from Full of Hell, their guitar player, was posting like a Big Cartel, like his personal Big Cartel website, I guess, while they were on tour or something like that. And he was posting these different like noisemakers where he would put like a 1/4-inch jack into this handmade wooden box. And they were all kinds of different ones that he had. I think the first one we were using was actually like this metal, it looked like a pedal almost, but it wasn't. And it just had a 1/4-inch jack into it with a bunch of screws on the inside and a contact mic. And then like a, I don't know the particular term, but like a grinder. It's like a power tool with that disc on the end that you would use to like, I'm guessing cut wood or some sheet metal, something like that. And that was on there. And like this spring was like hoisted across it. It was like $35 or something like that. And, but it also had these little holes in the top and it was chaos. I have no clue what happened to it. He doesn't make them anymore. I'm pissed because you plug this thing in and you've got this contact mic. It immediately just makes feedback as soon as you plug it in. Yeah. And then you can shake the shit out of it and you get the sound of all these screws and nickels and stuff in there. Or that grinder really has this disgusting, like grindy tone. And the holes, like I watched people on the internet just like jam screwdrivers into this shit and just be making weird ass noises. Like it was literally just a noise making device. And then he made like a couple other ones, like just various little designs. There was one that was a really thin wooden box that just had a thin, like long chain screwed into it. And you could kind of like drop it on here. That's what we did with, I want to say that one was for the end of Sometime Somewhere. It, like when it really opens up real big at the end, like when the chords kind of get a little bit bigger, there's this like just nasty feedback, like back and forth sound. And we literally for probably 30 minutes just like held this box and loosely held the chain against it with our hands. And we just like shook the shit out of it while recording like for so long. And then we just like skimmed through and we were like, okay, yeah, that sounds pretty cool. And then when it does like the pauses in that track at the end, we literally like one person was holding this box and shaking it. And then the other person would take the cable and be like, nah, 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 like to make sure it wasn't continuing to be
Yeah.
the feedback during the pauses. And that's where a lot of it was used. I mean, just natural feedback and stuff like that. And these weird, like full of hell guitarist noisemaker devices.
Hmm.
Um, and an EBO. Chase has an EBO. So that's kind of how we did that slide siren-y kind of noise
Yeah.
in the at the end of Sometime Somewhere as it's building up is just this disgusting, weird
Yeah.
contraption.
No, dude, that's sick and so much more than I was expecting. That's
It's just
fucking
weird,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. No, but that's I feel like that's also kind of the fun part of it is just like pulling out some bullshit and kind of doing anything and everything that you can to make like just
Mm-hmm.
gross stuff.
I think the thing that was entertaining to us too was it can never be mimicked exactly the same way. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
You can learn how your pedal works and kind of make something sound similar. So like we would play with these devices live when the record was getting ready to drop or had first dropped while we were performing. And it just sounds different every single time. Like there's just
Hmm.
no way we could line it up, which was really interesting to us at the time. And then I think stopped us from bringing it on the road because we have also no way to like plug these things in.
Hmm.
So a lot of the time we would run it through like the other channel on the bass cab. And now at the end of a song, you have like a noise, like a harsh noise fighting the bass, which sucks. Or we would run it through the PA. And then like the venue owners are flipping out. They're like, you're about to blow
Yeah.
my PA. Like, what is this static coming out of it? And so we just kind of abandoned that idea live. But I think on newer material, it'll probably make a comeback.
Word. Um, yeah, so actually that kind of helps transition to the next question. I know you guys are working on new stuff. Is there any information you'd like to drop about it? Any kind of general time frame or specific or general ideas you're working towards?
Um, I genuinely have no idea with a time frame. I do have to say, admittedly, um, we basically stopped during quarantine. It was like the
Yeah.
prime opportunity for us to take a very long break that we hadn't done in like
Hmm.
4 to 5 years. So we've got a lot of work to do, I'll say.
Yeah.
I think collectively we're all on board with the idea that we'd like to do an LP. We've put out enough short releases. We want to do a nice big long one.
Mm.
We have 4 or 5 maybe demos and a few ideas from before quarantine, like from the time we had finished recording Feel It to the time quarantine started. We kind of started working on some stuff.
Yeah.
And we're now coming back to those and rehashing them and kind of figuring them out a little bit better. And then definitely want to write a bunch of new stuff. Like ideally, I think we'd like to have like between 12 to 15 good songs and then whittle it down to like 10 to 12 that we actually want to put out.
Mm-hmm.
Another big thing, I guess, is like we're trying to do whatever we want 100%.
Yeah.
Like there's a little bit of a box to a degree, you know what I mean? You can be creative and do whatever you want, but when you've developed a fan base around having this sound, if you make too drastic of a change without having enough of a status to warrant that change and still, be in business off of it, it can really scramble up, things for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of freaked us out for a while, but I think now we've realized like we're not an emo band or a hardcore band or post-hardcore grunge or shoegaze, but we just have this wide range of influences where instead of just writing songs of each kind, like we blend it all, in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of blending it, I think we're now going to try and go like down
More of
each
a
individual.
focus.
Yeah. So,
Mm-hmm.
but still keep it like a wide array, if that makes sense. So like
Yeah.
some of the new stuff we've been working on is like straight up like Deftones rips. And then you've got other songs that sound like old Turnstile, like old Turnstile tracks or like the Heat Wave record by TUI, stuff like that. And so instead of being like, let's write a emo song with a really grungy chorus and then this hardcore part at the end, we're like, let's write a grunge song and then let's write a hardcore song. And then, you know what I mean? And kind of just making everything a little more
Yeah.
concise. Yeah. So that way too, I think it's weird because you can get this record shared around in circles of emo fans who can recommend just the emo tracks to people. And then hardcore fans can latch onto it and just fuck with these hard tracks. And that is in a way to us the same thing with like mixed bill shows, how okay, if you like these 2-3 hardcore tracks on here and then one day you give it the full spin, that could be the one record that opens you up to the idea of going and listening to Citizen or Basement, or on the vice, flip side of things, that could be what pushes you to go listen to like Trapped Under Ice or something like that. That's just kind of where we're at with it, I think, right now. But a time frame is way beyond me.
It'll happen at some point.
It will. It's going to be cool too. I'm really stoked on it.
Word. Is there anywhere, any point that you'd like to have it out, or at least like have some stuff finished by, or you're just like, you guys are kind of just feeling it out?
A lot of it is feeling it out. There's been like some general discussion, but no one's really set in stone. Like, let's, get a calendar working for it or something like that. I think our music normally does really good with like a late summer, early fall kind of release, just with it being a little bit more emotional. Mm-hmm. I don't foresee us dropping like the summer record that you play with the windows down, you know what I mean? Driving to the beach, if that makes sense. It's more of like a, damn, it's really getting dark at 5 o'clock now kind of record.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're rehashing those demos. I think it would be cool to have these songs kind of written and ready by the end of this year and start recording by the winter time this year. Mm-hmm. Just because with shows bouncing back, but everything being so pushed far out, we're not really actively going out and being like, let's set up this show, let's do this tour. We're kind of just playing shows that people come to us about that we can manage, which is going to give us a lot of free time, because once we get back into doing the shows, you get back into hanging out regularly and things like that. And then we can just be working on music in all this free time without the hang up of, I have to request that day off for a show. I can't do both of these days type deal anymore, which is going to be good. I think that's going to be good for us. Yeah.
Word. Cool. Well, it's been fucking great talking with you. Is there anything else that you'd like to put out there?
I want to put out like a little thank you list, if I can, to the Lonely Bird Records folks, our friends at Impetus Records, who helped us with the initial physical release of it. All our friends, big shout out right now to Regrown out of New Jersey. They're killing it. They just put out a really, really good record on Unbeaten Records. Shout out to our friend Peachface out of Baltimore. She's doing like some neo soul R&B stuff with a lot of vocal loops. She's super interesting. And keep an eye on our social medias. We try to keep updates with shows, or if we're working on some music or whatever, hit our DMs. We're thinking about making a Discord. So if you play, I don't know, like Grand Theft Auto or some shit, I don't know, fucking whatever video games the kids are into nowadays. Yeah, well,
definitely not that, but yeah.
But that's pretty much it. And thanks for having me. I appreciate you hitting me up about it. This was sick. I love doing things like this.
Yeah, no, I always enjoy doing them too. And I was excited for this one because we've never actually like really spoken.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a nice invitation
or whatever. Yeah. You guys are playing a show as well on the re-release date on July 3rd. It's with Think Machine, and I don't remember the other three bands.
It's with Think Machine. It is with the Lusciouses, who my roommate put me on to.
I think I may have seen them once before.
Yeah, I think they play more like Newark, Wilmington area than they do down in Dover. A new group called AM Dreaming. It's just some neighbors of mine across the street, like a couple doing like a little acoustic duet thing, which is cool. And a buddy of mine and my roommate's Nick Cellino. He's like this sick folk bluegrass banjo shred god type thing.
Word.
So there's a little bit of stuff for everybody. We encourage people to come out. We do want to emphasize that it's more like a neighborhood cookout with live music, and it is not a house show. So don't pull up and do drugs and act like a fool, because I will have to, deal with the consequences of all my neighbors picking up those roaches later in the night. Mm-hmm. But yeah, welcome anybody out. It is on July 3rd. It's on Green Hill Road in Dover, Delaware. Vegan options, bring a dish. We'll have some non-vegan options for the meat eaters. Like I said, there's music for everybody. It's just going to be a cool time. Like bring a chair, like a little gazebo. We'll have the merch set up. I'm sure people will be playing games, can jam or whatever people do outdoors. I don't spend much time outside, but yeah,
it'll
it'll
be
be
a good
sick.
time.
Yeah, for
All right,
sure.
cool. Well, again, thanks for joining me today. It's been great talking to you. I don't think really I have anything else to add, so I think that's all for this one. Thank you guys
All
for
right,
watching.
sweet.
As I mentioned before, all the relevant links and stuff will be in the description. So go buy a record. They're very cool and they sound good. So have a good one.